editing floor. The reason I'm coming to you right now is today on the show, OpenAI had some breaking news for us that they haven't had in a while. They dropped a new frontier model called GPT 5.4 Thinking and 5.4 Pro. This is the new generalized model. We haven't seen a generalized model since GPT 5.2. And this model folds in the coding capabilities of GPT 5.3 Codex that we saw launch last month in February. We actually got to test the model out live on the show. And if you don't want to wait till the end of the show, here's a summary of the most important things. But do tune in as we did some testing like we always do, and it was really fun to see the model break in real time. This model has taken everything that worked for GPT 5.3 Codex, the coding stuff, and folded it into a unified reasoning model. They're calling it their best model yet, and they always call their models the best one yet, but this one seems to back it up. The headline story for me was Bartosz Naskerski, a Polish mathematician. He goes by Naskret on Twitter, and he shared that 5.4 solved a research-level frontier math problem that he had been working on for about 20 years. He called it his personal Move 37. You guys remember Lee Sedol and AlphaGo? This is a big, big moment. And said the solution was very clean and nice and feel almost human. On ArcAGI 2, the Pro version, the bigger of the two releases today, hit 83.3%. Very closely matching the Gemini DeepThink that we saw a few weeks ago. And on OS World and computer use, this model scored 75%, which supposedly beats the human baseline on computer use. GPK Diamond at 94%. The agentic stuff is also interesting. Folks from Zapier confirmed that this is the new state of the art for multi-step tool use, and their tool search optimization cuts token by 47% token usage, which is massive for anybody building agents or using OpenClaw. And there's also a really cool feature that I wanted to highlight, a mid-thought steering. We saw this on Codex before, but now even on ChatGPT, you can interrupt the model while it's thinking and redirect its reasoning in real time by confirming something or seeing that it goes into some path that you don't want it to go. And it's now on ChatGPT interface. This is a first for any production AI model that I've seen. It is 1 million context window, $2.50 on the input, and then double that after 272 tokens. So it is 1 million context, the first one we've seen from OpenAI since GPT 4.1 on production. It's cheaper than Claude Sonnet 4.6, and reportedly on computer use, it beats Claude Opus 4.6. The community's sentiment on this is basically this is the model and you don't need to choose anything else. As always, after the first initial few days of excitement, we see that it's not the case. But we tested it live. We'll get into the details. This is a significant drop from OpenAI. Let's get into Thursday. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Thursday. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with Weights and Biases. Today is Thursday, March 5th. This is our first show in March and our last show before our 3-year anniversary. Can you believe it? And yet another very full week here in the world of AI. To help me cover this, I will add my trusty co-hosts, LDJ and Wolfram and Ryan Carson. Welcome, folks, to the show. How is your week? There's a lot to talk about.
I'm excited. Good to be here.
Yeah, great to be here. LDJ, how are you?
I'm doing swell. It's a lot of exciting, upcoming things very soon.
Yep. And Wolfram, how about you? How are you doing?
Amazing week and very busy week for me. So I couldn't even keep up with the AI news very much, but that's why we are here, to bring people up to the latest.
Yeah, 100%. So this is why you're here, and just a shit ton of news, not only on the AI front, also in the world as well. But we're not going to cover this. Besides just acknowledging, folks, that we specifically, I can say for myself, but probably for everybody else here, we hope that folks are okay wherever they are, especially civilian folks. Folks, I think it's time for TLDR. So, folks, let us catch you up. This is the TLDR, the section that we're going to run through everything that we have to talk about in the show so that you'll be caught up to date. And if you're interested in any part, just stick around with us. So let us catch you up on everything that happened since last week, since you listened to Thursday, because I think a lot has happened. Let's go, TLDR. All right, this is the TLDR. This is the section on Thursday where we run through everything that happened that was very of importance in the world of AI. With you, Alex Volkov, AI evangelist and from Weights and Biases, your host. Our co-host today, we have a full panel. Wolfram Raven, Wolfgang Peleg, Ryan Carson, Nisten, and LDJ are all here. Folks, the biggest story from the last week, obviously, we started with this Anthropic and the Department of War. If you don't remember, a brief reminder for you, Anthropic got an ultimatum from the Department of War, previously the Department of Defense and the Pentagon, to remove some restrictions. And there was a whole thing. Back a week ago on the show, we were waiting for Anthropic's answer. Well, Anthropic did answer, and then the Department of War also did answer, and then OpenAI came into the mix. So we're going to cover all of this very soon after the TLDR, because I think it's very important to talk about. Also, from this last week, Alibaba Qwen is in the news, and they released Qwen 3.5 small, a series of small models. For the past 3 weeks, Qwen has been consistent in releasing series of models, but also Qwen was not in the news because of their series of models. They were in the news because our friend of the pod, Junyang Lin, posted publicly on Twitter that he has quit the team, causing an uproar of huge proportions, enough so that Alibaba CEO convened the whole company to talk about this. And stepping in to maintain the open source ability of Alibaba. There's like this story is still developing, but it's big in kind of the world of open source, and people are talking about this. So we'll catch you up as far as we know. We have some source news, but we're going to talk about this. Also this week, OpenAI rolls out GPT 5.3 instant, but GPT 5.3 instant. OpenAI claims it's less cringe, claims it's more accurate, and there's some safety trade-offs, etc. But instant is the model that is served for free for people who don't pay for ChatGPT, so you know it's not the best one. Google also launched Gemini 3.1 Flash-Lite, which is kind of in the same category, right? We're seeing these models kind of in the same category. So Gemini 3.1 Flash-Lite is very fast and efficient with 360 tokens per second. So we're going to talk about that as well. In open source, there's a bunch of news. So obviously we already mentioned Qwen 3.5 small model series. They have native multimodal capabilities, and they are rivaling models 13x their size. Always fun to see small models, because in the world of open source, the models that we actually run on our hardware are the small models. We cannot run the 1 trillion parameter Yuan 3.0 that also released this week, 1 trillion parameter open source MOE, but we can run Qwen 3.5 small on all their variations, and we're going to talk to you about them. Also, folks from StepFund released Step 3.5 Flash with full training code bases under Apache 2, which we always celebrate. They claim this the most open foundation model release from a Chinese AI lab, because they have all of the training there as well, and Apache 2. So this is quickly on open source. I think that's pretty much it. In tools and agentic engineering, Cognition released SWE 1.6. Cognition is the company behind Devin and Windsurf now. Released SWE 1.6 is their fine-tune, and it is very, very fast. I think it's powered by Cerebrus, I think. 950 tokens per second, achieving 51% of Swibench Pro. We told you last week, Swibench Verified is no longer relevant. OpenAI is not going to report on this. Swibench Pro is kind of the new software engineering benchmark. So Cognition released their preview of their like super fast and cheap model as well. And OpenAI launches Codex app on Windows. In this week's Buzz, we have a early preview for you that Wolfram is going to get into very, very soon. It's something we call Wolfbench, how different AIs perform under different harnesses. This is a very interesting, very up-to-date segment that you should listen to, because we went deep to try to figure out how to test these models, and should we trust just one segment. I don't think we have a bunch on vision and video.
We did miss something, and it's called Bullshit Bench.
Yes, Peter Gostev's Bullshit Bench, but please tell us about this.
Yeah, it was just too busy. So it asked something about, it's a restaurant and they want to change the recipe or something, but then it just tries to make it just adds a lot of corporate jargon to the question that says that the fire code regulations will hit with our proprietary thing. This is my favorite benchmark because it shows everything I dislike about the Gemini models, that they will always reply with corporate executive summary regardless of what they're asked.
Yeah, so this is Bullshit Bench. Peter Gostev, part of the Arena team now, and a friend of the pod as well. Thank you, Nisten. Wolfram, you had another one that we missed.
It's not a small thing, maybe. It's not even directly AI, but it is relevant for AI. And I think that it has been released is an interesting thing, that Google released the Google Workspace CLI, which is a command line tool.
Yes.
Google Mail, Drive, Calendar, and so on. So like us open cloud people, we have been using the tool Peter Steinberger made, the GOG CLI, and now Google did an official tool that way. And I hope this is the first in many and inspiration for others to follow. So that is a change in the mindset that now Google accepts that agents will be using their tools, all of their tools, and basically support this. And that is a great thing. And I think there should be more of this. So I see it as a great sign.
I think it's absolutely a great sign. CLI command line interface for folks who are listening who don't know what this means. Folks, I'm trying to make this approachable. We're on the top of this AI wave. Many people who are listening is like, I have no idea what they're talking about. So we'll try. Google released a set of tools for your agents to do tasks for you in the Google Workspace. Read Gmail, read documents. Everybody's like super, super happy. For some reason, before this, there was not one unified way to do this, even despite the fact that Google is like everywhere. So now there is, and it's very, very exciting. And also there's, if we're in the tools and other places as well, Ryan, I sent you a thing.
Yeah, so it's called Symphony, and thank you for sending it to me. Basically, it's an orchestration layer very similar to the code factory that I'm trying to build. And it's fascinating, and it's created by Open. It's funny you mentioned I'm literally talking to Codex about installing it right now. So we maybe will see all the labs do this. Like, and I was literally in the Slack this morning talking to the OpenAI folks saying, we really need this like code factory orchestration layer built into Codex itself.
I want to highlight, and option 1 in how to install this is tell your favorite coding agent to build Symphony in a programming language of your choice. Implement Symphony according to the following spec and the link to the spec. So basically, this is like a new type of software release. They released a spec that you can say to your agents, hey, build this. And this is a crazy world that we live in. Folks, this was the TLDR. Let's dive into the actual news because I think there's a lot to cover and we could go on and on, but I think some of this is very, very important. So I think we'll start with the national security update, not the war stuff in Iran, because that's happening. And, you know, we'll keep this away from the show, despite our friend here, Yam, may need to run to a shelter at some point. Last week, we told you about Anthropic and the Department of War and that whole thing that's going on. And we were waiting for the answer. Anthropic has said no. Anthropic just replied to Department of Defense back on Thursday after our chat and said, we cannot in good conscience accede to these requests. The requests were, again, do not spy on US citizens and do not put Claude in the middle of a kill chain without human intervention for autonomous weapon building. Apparently, those were the two terms. Now, it gets significantly crazier since then, day by day. The stick behind this was a designation of potentially a supply chain risk for Anthropic, which means everybody who does business with the government will not be able to use Anthropic for the work with that supply chain risk. It's a law that never has been used against a US company. Against, this is the word, using against. And also Anthropic says they will challenge this in court. On Friday, the US President Trump tweeted that they're like super woke and left, and this is why they don't want to do this, and that he's asking all of the US governments to stop using Anthropic in the next 6 months. Friday evening, this escalated with Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, saying that he will designate Anthropic as a supply chain risk so nobody can use them. On Saturday, the US went to war with Iran. And there were reports that said that Claude was used in those attacks via Palantir. So despite the posturing and everything on Friday, this has been used in production because like the government doesn't work as fast as turn off something. They have processes and Claude is built in everywhere. What else happens? On Friday evening, Sam Altman posts, hey, hi folks, we have reached an agreement with the Department of War and announced that OpenAI and the Department of War have made a deal to deploy OpenAI models instead of Anthropic models. And they have an agreement in place with the highest restriction in place they ever done. And on Friday, at least as far as I saw, everybody were pro-Anthropic, anti-OpenAI because of the supposed moral stance that like Anthropic took in the face of the $200 million contracts. This was Friday. And there was so much backlash, at least on Twitter, against OpenAI that hashtags like quit OpenAI and delete OpenAI and etc. started trending. Multiple people showed that like, hey, they're going to Anthropic. It looked like this whole endeavor made Anthropic so much money that the $200 million deal with the DLW makes no sense to them at all. Like they made a lot of money because of this. Sam Altman later, I think Saturday, did an AMA on Twitter and acknowledged that the release was definitely rushed and the optics did not look good. And they amended the deal on Monday with the DOW to add surveillance and weapons prohibitions after the backlash. So there was a backlash and people started leaving OpenAI and deleting and canceling their accounts, etc., because supposedly OpenAI exceeded. Let's talk about this, folks. What do you think? Yam, I think you have some comments. Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, I want to talk about, the actual substance. Like, okay, I get all the moral standpoints and so on, but like, what exactly are they using Claude for, or wants to use Claude for? And it's also, to the best of my knowledge, we're talking about Sonnet. I'm not even sure that Sonnet 4.6. I mean, it's a very outdated model. And
we actually think it's 4.5. LDJ and I looked it up.
What are we even talking about? I mean, Claude is, I don't know, to the best of my knowledge, Claude is not piloting helicopters and so on. So what exactly Claude being used the war in Iran at the moment?
We have comments that saying the Palantir stack uses Anthropic Claude.
Yeah, so according to the Washington Post, and this is me quoting directly from them, they say it was used for, it quote, suggested hundreds of targets, issued precise location coordinates, and prioritized those targets according to importance, said two of the people, end quote. And it seems like also just for general planning, for helping expedite the process of planning and kind of thinking through different battle scenarios and basically helping decide what would be the optimal plan for a given scenario.
Yeah. Nisten, go ahead. What's your take on this?
Look, at the end of the day, the US Army and Air Force, they are primarily logistics companies, and they were some of the world's best logistics companies, and that's what enables them to do their missions. So that, I mean, it's not so much about, I actually think that prioritizing targets and stuff, that's like a very minor thing of what Sonnet is being used. There's just an entire outdated software stack there that needs fixing, like all the parts coming in, there's software for all different providers, and these are all public complaints that have happened. So how are you going to fix that? You're going to use some kind of agentic AI tool. Honestly, I got a lot of work done with Sonnet 4.5. So if they had a less nerfed version or a less quantized version, they'll probably still be a lot better than most of the other tools.
For removal of doubt, Nisten is Canadian. He does not work for the Department of War. That work he refers to is his own work, unrelated to any government stuff.
Yeah, these are all public complaints about like what the F-35 software stack was and how to manage all the parts. And even the US Army itself has adopted an open source, but like internal open source philosophy to just make a lot of the software more compatible with each other. Yeah. So again, this is a logistics organization that has very good logistics, and they run on a very messy mix of software, as it publicly seems, by public complaints. So you do need to fix that software, and you need a very good AI model. And honestly, I think Sonnet's pretty good for that.
Yeah,
I just think this is all a bit of posturing and isn't even real. Like, are they going to literally go out and scrape everyone's API keys off their machines so they stop using an Anthropic model? And it's so not practical. It's clearly said by people that don't use this technology, that don't understand what engineers actually do or how they do it. And it's just stupid. Like, and also, why would the US cut off its nose to spite its face? Like, use whatever models you can. Like, and I think it's just kind of annoys me.
A lot of people looked at Anthropic as kind of the moral stance people that don't cow to the government's demands, etc. And then this is also, and I'm going to try to stay as neutral as possible here, because I think I think everybody's wrong or everybody's right. I don't know. But I'm going to try to stay as neutral as possible here. A lot of people looked at OpenAI's going and saying, hey, we will be okay with a legal framework, that this legal framework does not make sense anymore, and kind of attributed a moral sense to Anthropic. And we know from our show, we know from Anthropic's conversation, Anthropic's like very big into safety. Apparently, this was not about safety at all. Two things about this. One, apparently on Friday, there was a memo that Dario Amodei posted internally that leaked yesterday. And that leak shows incredible language that Dario Amodei uses, specific targets, Sam Altman, and his kind of like antics and shenanigans, calling everybody on Twitter morons. It was I called it out on Twitter, the roller coaster of, hey, Anthropic is, based because we're using the best model. Anthropic is horrible because they tell OpenCloud to change their name. Anthropic is the best because they release cloud code. Anthropic is the best because the back and forth between how quickly everybody like decided Anthropic is the best and the worst is just like giving me whiplash. The latest thing, though, is, according to Financial Times, Anthropic chief is back in talks with the Pentagon about the AI deal. Not only that, multiple tech companies reached out to the government and said, hey, like, we worried when you're taking a company of the private market and because of the stuff that you want them to do, you designate them as a supply chain risk and potentially are talking about invoking the Defense Production Act to take over them, nationalize them, something that China would do and not something that we in the US should be able to do because we have private markets that are separate from the government. Kind of the posturing from Anthropic was very interesting. It led them, it was the best campaign they ever did, I think. Way more money and people and influx of new registrations, way more than the Super Bowl commercial that they did, like knocking on OpenAI. So there's definitely that. We also see that Anthropic just passed 20 billion, or like coming very, very close, 19 billion, more than doubling in 3 months since 9 billion run rate. It was confirmed that Anthropic they hit 19 billion plus in annual revenue, recurring annual revenue, more than doubling from 3 months ago from 9 billion. So enterprises are signing up. Many of them probably work with the government, and some of them, because of this designation that they are aiming to challenge in court, may not be able to. So this is kind of the saga. I think less comments, folks, on the saga. Like, we just wanted to give an update. It looks like Anthropic is still in the chats with the Pentagon. So all of this posturing may mean nothing, and it's just like public for show. And eventually they will still work with the government, because how could they not? US needs the best AI tools. Like, why wouldn't they see?
Sam Altman had to fall back and say a few things about what safety precautions they're taking when it comes to national surveillance, because they have like 100, I don't know how many, what percentage of the US population they have as users. And that was pretty funny to me, because like no one believed him when it came to that. And yeah, I don't think that worked out as well as he was hoping it would.
Yeah.
So leave it at that.
Okay, we're strongly not into politics, but we have to, because like AI is getting involved. The last thing I'll say, there was a phone call with President Trump, and he said, I fired Anthropic, which is just a funny way of saying this. I fired Anthropic. LDJ, go ahead, and we'll move on to Qwen, because there's some drama there as well.
Yeah, just some more recent updates on the supply chain risk designation. It seems like actually, as of more recently, in the past 48 hours, they're less so focusing on that, and it seems like they're maybe focusing more now on designating them as under the Defense Production Act, which would basically, it's almost like the opposite, extreme opposite, but it would basically force Claude to work with the government, essentially.
This is crazy. But did anybody think differently? These companies are building ASI. It's a matter of national security. Did anybody think that the government will not step in at some point and take over? Like, I know many people don't want to. Many people are, libertarian, for example. But like, this is not the way we live in. And the comparisons to China was very interesting, because essentially, there's no need for any of these laws to happen in China for the Chinese government to take over any of the AI labs. I think we have covered this, folks. In the comments, if you want to give us a comments about this, we would love to hear as well. What's your take? This is a developing situation, and obviously we don't know all the details. And it looks like, I would really recommend folks to go and try to read Dario Amodei's leaked memo, because he definitely did not mean to share as much publicly as he shared in this memo. And some choice comments from this is, Twitter morons may believe some Altman's antics, but he hopes that the member of the gullible staff in OpenAI doesn't. Honestly, I've updated a few of my stances after this leaked memo.
Insane. That's an insane quote.
Yep.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's really funny that most people from many people from OpenAI just changed their bio to Twitter moron, which is really funny. All right, folks, I think it's time for us to move on to the next thing that is kind of taking over. Alibaba, we'll talk about this in open source. Actually, worth covering now. Alibaba Qwen Lab. Alibaba has multiple, it's going to be relevant, multiple AI efforts, basically. So the Qwen team in Alibaba released Qwen 3.5 small model series with native multimodal capabilities, rivaling models 13x their size. The small models of Qwen 3.5, 9 billion parameters, is beating, let's take a look here. It's beating GPT OSS 120B on multiple benchmarks. Basically, they're saying that the 9 billion parameter Qwen 3.5 is competing with GPT OSS 120, which is an open source series of models that OpenAI released back in the summer of last year. They're also natively multimodal, right? So we have these models understand video and documents. So video MME is at 84% for these models, or for at least the 9 billion parameter model. GPQA Diamond is at 81%. This is a great series of models that can completely run on your device and potentially do some stuff on your device. Now, in the middle of releasing this, a day after releasing, do you guys want to comment on the actual models for a quick sec? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll quickly say, right now, the 9B model is the most popular model right now, trending on Hugging Face. And I don't have the speeds for that, but the 27B, which is 3 times larger, people
the
are
model
running
that was released last week.
People are running it on a 3090 card, which you can still probably get for like $900. And they're getting 35 tokens per second in the beginning. And then as it fills up after 100,000 tokens, they're still getting 15 tokens per second. And so the architecture of it allows that, and that is very usable now. And that model scored, had some of the best scores on artificial analysis. Yeah. So yeah, these are I think it's an important threshold that's being crossed here, is that what you can do with a $1,000 GPU, $1,000 budget, just crossed into being usable for agentic stuff.
Yep.
You can feed videos to them.
All of the Chinese labs, besides the whale big one that we keep waiting for to hopefully launch at some point, DeepSeek, all the Chinese models mostly release textual models. Alibaba Qwen is a specifically multimodal one. I think Kimi K2.5, the last one, is also multimodal, right? But
yeah,
most
but
of them, like GLM,
GPUs to run Kimi on your
it's 1 trillion parameter model, and Qwen is multilingual, multimodal, and 265K context, 262K context with the 9 billion parameter you can run on your device. The Qwen series of models is absolutely incredible. Qwen is almost single-handedly holding up the open source. We love open source, but we also love to be able to run these on our laptops. And so, 4090 is nice, but running a 9B parameter on the MacBook via LM Studio is much, much nicer for certain things. Now, with that said, they also released other sizes. They released a small one, 0.8 billion parameters. They released a 2 billion, 4 billion, and this 9B is the flagship. 9B is just the sweet spot for just intelligent enough to do some tasks, but also small enough to run on most laptops with decent speed. So very good agentic tool use and API calls. Anybody else play with the small one? Alrighty. So with that said, a day after this release, our friend of the pod, Junyang Lin, who was the tech lead for Qwen, basically posted on Twitter, "Goodbye, my beloved Qwen." This tweet reached, I looked yesterday, 5.7 million views, which just shows that how many, as Nisten said, this model was the most famous model on Hugging Face for a long time. Qwen has been carrying the torch of open source, and Junyang, with his 7 appearances on Thursday, I think. I invited him today, by the way, but I think he's otherwise preoccupied. He is the flag bearer for Qwen. He basically made Qwen Lab for what it is. He took over. He's one of the youngest like at his level there at Alibaba. And he posted, "Goodbye, my beloved Qwen." And then everybody started freaking out, like, what's going on? Very closely after this, Bin Yuan, who or something like this. Bin Yuan is also the member of the technical staff there. He posted "Me Too" as well. And so, like with the Grok departures of 3 weeks ago, everybody started speculating like what's going on. Somebody posted that they know it's not his choice. This announcement from Junyang did so much shock and awe across this ecosystem that apparently the CEO of Alibaba convened like a internal meeting a day after this announcement to talk to people and say that Qwen is still remaining. So apparently there's no firing, but based on reports from every other Chinese outlet, this story completely broke through the bubble as well. It's not like our own ecosystem, somebody gets, fired or something. This story absolutely broke through the ecosystem. A lot of the Chinese news outlets are reporting on this. Alibaba is very big in China and open source is very important to them. And so this post was seen as like, hey, maybe there's not gonna be any open source anymore. But based on KR64, there was a reporting that said Alibaba and open source will continue. Alibaba commits to open source. This was a dispute over who is going to consolidate which parts. So the Qwen team was not only the only AI team. We know there's Tongi, there's a few image models. Qwen image is different than the Qwen team. So apparently this was just a conversation about like who and where the resources are going to get allocated. Some comments from this meeting that they had, which the Qwen team is only like 100 people. With all the success in the Qwen models and the over 120 models that they released in open source, is only 100 people, 120 models. They have complained to the big wigs in Alibaba that it's harder for them to get resources than some of their clients. So GPUs to train their models, etc. And they did great work since then. So it's unclear where they're going, but as of yesterday, I think it's confirmed that Junyang's resignation was accepted, and then the CEO of Alibaba is now co-leading the Qwen lab directly. I don't know what that means. If it's good or bad, we'll see. But they're basically claiming that the Qwen team is larger than one man, despite the fact that Junyang did a lot of work, including evangelizing on our show. So we followed his career for a while here. So shout out to Junyang. We hope you land somewhere that you'll do great impact. I personally hope it's another Logan Kilpatrick situation, and Junyang is gonna take all of the good faith that he got from the community and take this to another lab, and we'll see. But this is the update there with Qwen's departures as well. So no, Qwen is not going away. Doesn't look like it, but our boy Junyang is not gonna represent Qwen anymore on the show. Folks, any comments on this? On how sometimes the people behind the AI kind of are more important than the AI itself?
I mean, as someone who's done DevRel for 25 years, I think people are very important, and we trust people. Think about how much Logan has done for Gemini. All of us use Gemini because of Logan. Yes, the technology is amazing, but it's the person. I think Roman has done an amazing job at OpenAI, for instance, really building, and a lot of people underneath him, like Dominic and other folks. So it's the people. Yeah, so this is a big blow for them. I don't know what happened, though.
Yep.
I'm most curious what is happening to the people now. Where they are going, what is happening, if they are forming a new company, joining another company.
We reached out for a comment and we did not get one. Once we get one, we'll update folks. LDJ, go ahead and then Nisten.
The mainstream population, things like football or basketball, and in the news a lot of the time, sometimes even more often than the scores of the game, you'll hear, oh, LeBron just got signed this contract for hundreds of millions of dollars, or this and that, and it just seems like this interesting thing where a lot of the entertainment truly is just the identities of the people involved themselves.
This is kind of like sports, the talents moving around, etc. So go ahead, you had a comment as well.
So there are a few things that could have happened here, but I'll just narrow it down to three. Either the three guys, a new company opened up and they got a much better option, which could be like an Ilya Sutskever type of situation. So there's one. And then the other one is what we saw from some of the people at Kimi. They were describing it as, how Google has level 1 to level 7 engineers and staff engineers and stuff. Well, at Alibaba, there are, when it comes to the executives, because they're all engineers in China, there are 14 levels, and Junyang was a level 10 there.
The youngest level 10, that's what I read somewhere.
So It is likely. So we saw, for example, with the GLM model, GLM-5, they announced, I don't know how true it was, but they announced that it was all trained on internal Huawei chips. So this could be a situation where they're forced to not use NVIDIA cards anymore for some arbitrary reason. So, and then they just can't get their work done, and then all these departments got consolidated. So that's the other one. And the third one, which is the spicy one, they might have just been forced to use Qwen VL models for killer drones, and they didn't want anything to do with that.
100% speculation. Nisten will move forward. AI rolls out GPT 5.3 instant. But basically, if you have used OpenAI ChatGPT and you decided to stop because it's dumb, you probably have played with the instant 5.2 version model. If you don't select the think versions of the ChatGPT, you are playing with the instant models. They are not great. This latest one is a little bit better at creative writing, still not amazing. But OpenAI basically posted and said on their socials, we hope this model is less cringe. Let us know what you think. And it interprets typos better. The previous one would like over obsess about typos. Then they claim 26% fewer hallucinations in web search and 20% reduction. I play with it just a little bit, but the honest truth is, besides Codex for coding, I do not use OpenAI ChatGPT anymore. And it's like a big change for me. Not only for me, I think like for many, many, many people prefer Claude. I know this from friends of mine who like discovered Claude recently. Not Claude Code, just Claude.ai, just the chatbot of Claude. And I don't know what happened with ChatGPT, but basically it looks like they're focusing their stuff on the coding. Again, we're waiting for the 5.4 model, and that supposedly does some changes. But the 5.3 instant, the model that they roll out to everyone for free, was updated. It's a little bit better in creative writing, but that's basically all of the vibes that I got from this model. Do you guys have any responses to this model compared to also Spark as well? Like the fast model that they put up on Cerebrus, Codex 5.3 Spark, kind of like answers the fast question. So why would anyone use this besides the folks who are the 900 million active folks on ChatGPT's platform?
You have to keep in mind that when it comes to voice mode, AI is still the best one. So if you want to take a walk down the street and you want to hear something, it is. So instant is pretty crucial to that.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't like OpenAI or Gemini responses at all. I prefer Kimi and Opus. But again, I haven't tried the model, but like I can tell almost instantly when reading all the claw internet that I can tell right away when it's freaking Codex or an OpenAI model writing something. It's just that very annoying language, which I don't want anywhere in my apps.
LDJ, you have a comment on this as well?
For the instant models for a while now, I feel like Claude has definitely been the best there. But here, this does seem like a noticeable improvement, especially in things like hallucination rate, where kind of when people say things like big model smell, I feel like a lot of that actually ends up coming down to things like total hallucination rate. But especially for things like, let's say you have just very low latency requirements for a specific use case. For example, I could think of something maybe when you're doing logistics with actual mechanisms and things in the real world, or maybe doing some robotic experiments and wanting to do some experiments with that, and it needs to really quickly react to the stimuli happening in the real world. That's something where that really fast text response might be applicable. But then again, you mentioned Codex Spark, and I imagine that and even that would probably be better for that, unless there's a big price disparity there in the API. So yeah, I think it is a bit confusing.
So this is the model that ChatGPT is giving for free to users. So this is ChatGPT for most users. Like most of the world is not even heard of AI yet. Those who do, they probably use the free versions. Of those, maybe like a very small percentage are actually paying for the regular ones and are able to switch, right? So this is whatever we want to call this, and whether or not like we care, this is an upgrade for some people. Speaking of faster models that was launched, Google launched Gemini 3.1 Flash-Lite. And this one is a completely different, right? So this is the fastest and most cost-efficient model in Gemini 3 series. And this one comes with a 1 million token context window, and it's fast with 300 tokens per second. Very, very fast. Not Cerebrus fast, right? We know there's some of these models are hosted on like specific chips like Cerebrus, and they are over 1,000 tokens per second. Last week, we told you about models etched on the actual hardware, that 15,000 tokens per second. But Gemini is not that fast, but it's really, really fast as well. Gemini 3.5 Flash-Lite, they call it the fastest and cheapest, with 86.9 in GPK Diamond compared to 82 for GPT 5 Mini and 73 4.5 Haiku for Claude. So there's a series of models where this competes with. So this competes with Haiku and Grok Fast and GPT 5 Mini, and Google is like showing off their skills because like honestly they can make all models fast. It's all a question of how much GPU they're gonna throw at it. Right now, I know for a fact that many people use the Gemini Flash ones for multiple things like prompt rewriting, catching regressions, doing different like guardrails, for example. One use case we keep telling you, by the way, it's great for open source models, but also these models are great for, is judging other models' outputs. You don't need a very strong model to judge other models' outputs as a LLM as a judge, for example. You can just use a fast model. The stronger, the faster your guardrail model is, the better it is for your clients, right? So deciding whether or not the output was jailbroken, deciding whether or not the client is asking for unsavory things, all those things, they go into using these models.
Tested it really quickly with the same Martian railgun question, and the Flash-Lite, Gemini Flash-Lite, got it correct. Actually got the math very precise, and I'm assuming 5.3 is rolled out because it just answered instantly, directly, and it just made major math mistakes that none of the other models make right now.
So the 5.3 instant ChatGPT made major mistakes, but
Yeah,
Gemini 3.1
math.
Flash did the math correctly, is what you're saying.
I got it very good, actually. A lot more specific in the numbers too.
Yeah. One call out from our audience is that the new Flash-Lite version is more expensive than the last version. That's correct. It's more expensive 2.5 Lite. So, yeah.
There's a Flash-Lite model, which is a smaller model.
Even
and
faster, yeah.
it's cheaper. But it's great for home automation. I use it on Home Assistant. So if I tell it to do something, I need tool calling and I need it fast. I don't want it to think a long time until I've already fallen down the cellar stairs because it's dark.
Yeah. And Wolfram, I think you mentioned also in comments the comment that I had about LLM as a judge. The judge needs to be a smarter model than what it's judging. Yeah, I agree. But there's a whole host of things that like you can detect things like guardrails with a faster, cheaper model.
I just want to say it is way more expensive than the previous. I think the previous one, look, all these CLI harnesses are using small models for all sorts of small things. I'm not sure that people realize to what extent, even Claude Code, the amounts of haiku calls for every prompt that you're sending. I mean, I don't think people realize, like, just to put the title at the top of the terminal, or to put the thing that is, you know, the spinner on the side that's going like shimmering and all of this. Every single one of these things is a haiku call. So this is probably a model that Google trained for the CLI of Gemini, and, you know, without, you know, an intention for actually commercializing it to this extent. Gemini 3 had these weird releases where you got Gemini 3, and all of a sudden you got Gemini 3 Flash that is better than the original 3, to the point that the original team of Gemini has shifted to use Flash 3. And then you had Gemini 3.1, which is probably the larger version of the Flash model that is stronger. And so people already discovered this model and started sending, you know, directly whatever they want, all sorts of prompts to it, because it's basically nearly free. And I think this is why Google is now releasing Flash-Lite 3 with a price tag, because it is extremely useful.
So that previous Flash-Lite was 10 cents per million token input and 40 cents per output. Extremely cheap. Now this one, this new double Flash-Lite is 50 cents per input and $1.50 per output. That is because most, like, if you do it agentically, over 90%, 95% of your tokens are input tokens. It's 5 times more expensive at input, and almost 4 times more expensive at output. So that's a big price increase.
Yep.
He did get the math right though, so there's that.
All right, folks, I think it's time for us to move on. This show is brought to you by Weights and Biases CoreWeave, and we have something to announce to you. So we're going to go to this week's Buzz, the corner where we cover this week's excitements from Weights and Biases. Stick with us. We have a bunch of other tools and agentic things to talk about. Meanwhile, let's go to this week's Buzz. Alrighty, welcome to this week's Buzz. With you right now, Alex Volkov, AI Evangelist with Weights and Biases, and Wolfram Ravenwolf, also AI Evangelist at Core with Weights and Biases, both the same team. Wolfram, you have something to show us here on today's show, and I'm very excited to show this to folks as well. So let's talk about what you have to show.
Great. So it's finally the time to really talk about this and show it to the world, what I've been up to now that I joined CoreWeave in January and working at the Weights and Biases team. So basically it's called, I chose the name Wolfbench because basically it's not even a real benchmark per se. It's more like a framework for evaluation. It's based on Terminal Bench. But let's start at the beginning. Why should you care and why do I care? So I've been the eval guy, not evil, eval, for a long time. But I'm doing this because I want to use my AI better. I want to use my agents better. I've been working on agents and my assistant 3 years, agent 2 years. So I'm always testing models because I want to know which is the best for the agentic users, general purpose AI basically. And I chose Terminal Bench because it is not a coding benchmark, although many people think it is, and it's often put in there, but it is actually a benchmark about how to use terminals, like system administration, terminal interaction, Git server configuration, setting up servers, and doing stuff you would ask of your agent. So it's a nice sample of all these things. And the thing is, it already exists, of course, and it is one of the most popular. That's also why I'm using it, so I can compare my scores to what the labs report. And the thing is, you always see this, what we are looking at right now. Basically, what we see is an average score. Most use 5 runs, 4 runs, and different timeouts for all of this. And you see one score and you don't really know very much. Like what we are seeing now, like Kimi K 2.5.
Could you zoom in, please, a little bit, Wolfram?
Yeah, let's zoom in one more. So basically, Kimi, GLM5, and Minimax, they almost have the exact same score. So which one should you use for your agent? The one score is not enough. It doesn't tell you enough about what the model is actually doing. And even this is the Terminal Bench benchmark. It uses its own agent, Terminus 2. But how does it do in Claude Code? How does it do in OpenClaw? I wanted to know these things, and that is why I've been doing these. I tested it with different agents, like I have Claude Code, CC, and I also wanted to make sure how many runs I've done. I'm aiming for 5. Here I will do more models, more agents. And you can do even combinations, like how would Claude Code do if I use a Codex model with it? And how would Codex do if I use Claude Code with this? All stuff I'm planning to do soon and report about this. And what is special about this framework of evaluating it is I'm not just using the average score. I have basically, it's a 4-metric framework where I have the average, but I can also see like what is the best of the 5. So you see it goes a bit above the average, of course. So what was the best one that was done? But even more interesting to me was how many of the 89 tasks that are in this benchmark, how many can the model actually solve at all across all the runs, even if it has never solved all of these at once. So that is the ceiling, the theoretical top. So if we just look at Terminus, we see that Sonnet and Opus are very close together, but Kimi and the Chinese, they are also very close together on that part. Now looking at what is the solid base, which task got solved in all the runs? We did 5 each. So how many tasks got solved all the time? And that is a very different picture. So even if Claude Opus can do 88% of the whole benchmark, on average, it only does 73%, and only 55 or even 55% it can do all the time. So that is a reliability, because an agent that is doing it sometimes but not all the time is less reliable if it's not doing it consistently. So that is a consistency. And if you look at all of them together, that also paints a very interesting picture, because now we see that even if Kimi has a higher average than the others, it has a lower baseline. So here even GLM has an advantage. And this is also very interesting because now Kimi only gets 10% of all the tasks done. So it is not very reliable. It can do a lot, as much as, for instance, GLM, but GLM has a twice as high baseline of the task it always does.
Wolfram, I have a few questions, and I want to highlight some of the findings as well. And folks, you can find all this in Wolfbench. Wolfram, I think that this view is unique. The view that you currently have right now is unique. One score is not enough to tell us about the model. There's variations in every run of the benchmark. Every time we run the benchmark, there's a few variations. For Terminal Bench specifically, there's a bunch of tasks, and I think the floor thing is very important. As you guys can see on the graph, the bottom darker shades of every column shows how many tasks these models solve all the time. 100% of the runs, these models solve the tasks all the time. And the top score is at maximum, at the best run possible, at best conditions, how many tasks every model solves. Opus is absolutely mugging everybody at the maximum one. Like at the Terminal Bench, Opus 4.6 is the best model. But we also looked and tested with different harnesses. Harnesses, what actually runs the model, and Wolfram, you have three here. You have the Terminal Bench harness itself. You have the Cloud Code harness that everybody uses. Everybody who's like excited about Cloud Code essentially is excited about the prompts and the system and kind of how it tool calls specifically. And also one of the more famous ones that many non-techie people started using is OpenClaw, right? And in all those harnesses, the models perform a little bit differently, because of the system prompts, because of the additional tool call settings and the explanations to the model, right? So it's not only which model do you use and what number do they show you. The coolest thing is to compare GPT 5.3 Codex inside Cloud Code versus Opus 4.6 inside the Codex app. And I think comparing between them and seeing who has the better harness compared to the model, I think is going to be very exciting. I'm going to bring up, Wolfram, do you have any other comments before I bring up the co-host questions about this?
I want to just say thanks also to, of course, the company I work for, which is sponsoring the podcast and my work as well. I'm working for them. I'm doing this for them and with them. So the inference we have been using for the Chinese model, that was on our own. So I test our own inference to make sure that it works as good as officially published results. So it's not cheap to do this. And the Opus, for instance, a single Opus run with Terminal Bench costs, if it's Opus 4.6, so it cost me $120 per run. So it's 5 runs of these. So that is very expensive. And Sonnet costs $80 because it has been a lot of tokens and 50% were cached, which is also something I will write in the repo. This is just the beginning. I will add more agentic frameworks like Gemini CLI and Codex are definitely coming next. Maybe Hermes Agent, which is also a new agentic framework. So I want to add more. And and I need sandboxes for this. Daytona sponsored the sandboxes with a couple $100 because it's 89 tasks and I do 5 runs per model and each run is limited to 2 hours. So it is 890 hours CPU time. That is also a lot of time it takes to do the benchmark. And the 2 hours is also a special thing.
Big shout out to Daytona for helping us and sponsoring the sandboxes here, folks. Like, agents need sandboxes on the internet to run their code, and we couldn't have done this without Daytona. Awesome job, Wolfram. You can check out Wolfbench at wolfbench.ai, and we'll keep updating this with new models, including models that we host on our own inference, so you'll know kind of the full story there and which models to use. Obviously, the highlight there, at least the highlight for me, is that you shouldn't trust there's just the one score. These models perform great on the baseline, but the variance between how many they can do in general is also important. Nisten, I think you had a question before we move on.
Yeah, and I do want to say that I'm not that surprised by Sonnet performing so well at the OpenClaw benchmark, because based on what LDJ said last week or 2 weeks ago, that it might have been trained longer. Can we run this benchmark on our own too? I would be interested to run it with smaller agentic models. And the other thing that I want to try, which may or may not be entirely kosher with the terms of service, would be to just hook up the Cloud Code CLI with a proxy to a VLM API running Kimi or Minimax or whatever, because I want to see when you hook up those models that apparently have been trained on Claude's data, how well do they actually do here? That would be interesting.
That's definitely possible. I did it with Lite LLM, but now it's even easier nowadays where they have APIs that are Claude compatible and even advertise this, so you can do this. You can do it. It is a Terminal Bench 2.0 benchmark, basically the original one, with specific settings that give it. And it is all down here, like how long the timeout is, how many CPUs and RAM I gave the sandboxes. So it's all gets the same resources. So it's not that if OpenClaw were using more RAM, it would run out of memory much easier with the small ones. And yeah, you could do the same. Nothing against that. I'm doing this. I used Marimo, which is a notebook, a Python notebook thing. I use this to build a dashboard where I create this. I start the runs, I get the stats. I will put them all on the weights and biases weave as well, so people can look into this. I will make more posts about this and share it. I want it to be completely transparent. So the settings I'm using, I will put them on GitHub so you can get the config. And if you do some runs with the config, I trust you. So if you report the scores to me, we can put it in there. And yeah, let's build on this.
Awesome, folks. If you want to participate and run your own benchmarks or your own harnesses, wolfbench.ai, and reach out to Wolfram, and we'll definitely include this. Right, time to move on. Wolfram, thank you so much for bringing this over. Great work on Wolfbench. Let's talk about open source. There's a few things in open source that we haven't covered. We talked about Alibaba Qwen 3.5 small models. There's two models that I wanted to bring to your attention from StepFun. StepFun releases Step 3.5 Flash base. They call it the most open foundational model out of the Chinese labs.
I haven't tried this, but people are incredibly excited about this. I think StepFun just made a name for themselves with this release, strangely enough. Yeah, people love that they have SFD, supervised fine-tuning data from this.
I think this is the highlight for this model, right? Like they released all of the training as well. They released the base mid-train for code and agents in long context. They released their Steptron OSS training framework. The SFT data is coming soon. It didn't launch yet apparently, and it's all Apache 2 licensed. So basically, not only they're saying, "Hey, here's the model. You go use this," which we can look at the benchmarks here. 74, it's Wolfbench verified. Again, so Wolfbench verified after last week. I think everything throughout the training process is open, which is great. And there's some evidence that folks are switching from Qwen to Step 3.5 Flash. It runs on a Mac Studio M4, and it runs obviously on DGX Spark, which is the NVIDIA's little small like supercomputer.
This allows you to continue pre-training the model how you want. And that's a big deal for people. I think there's going to be a lot of companies that just like use this and say, "Oh, we're releasing this model," and they don't say that it's based off of a Chinese model. But yeah, it's huge that they provided that, because you can continue pre-training, not just fine-tuning, but continue the pre-training of the model how you want. And that is a big deal, because like a lot of the shackles around the model haven't yet settled. So you can kind of, you can formulate the yogurt how you want later on. So yeah, it's a big deal for people that train models.
Yeah. So we have a few comments here. Let me go take a look at our enrichment summary. A significant shift in openness is what folks notice most of all. Oh, let's go. Breaking news. Let's go. LDJ, let's go. Here's why we're here for. Okay, StepFun is going to step aside for a second. Sorry for the pun. Folks, we have breaking news.
Let's fucking go.
AI breaking news coming at you only on thursdai.
It's so funny. We were like fully expecting it that something's gonna happen.
All right, LDJ, your honors. You found this first. Go ahead.
Okay, so introducing GPT 5.4, that is the title of the blog post that OpenAI just dropped. And we might as well just kind of scroll down to when we start seeing benchmarks. That's what we really just want, right?
Yeah.
So a GDP val, which measures a lot of different tasks that the OpenAI teams have deemed as valuable to things like GDP and just overall economically valuable jobs. Here it ends up getting 83%. I believe when it says wins or ties, I believe it's saying 83% of the time it gets a win or a tie with the human measure in the data set. That's compared to around 70% for both GPT 5.2 and 5.3 Codex. Swooped Pro about the same gap between 5.4 and 5.3 Codex as we saw between 5.3 Codex and 5.2. So about 1-ish, 2%. OS World verified, not a huge difference, but about 1% extra.
Look at this. GPT 5.2, the last kind of like main OpenAI model, not the Codex fine-tuned one for code specifically, the main one. The jump in OS World is from 47% to 75%. So this model, the generic OpenAI model that's now going to serve everyone, not only the coders, is also going to be incredible at like using computers. This does seem like a distillation of Codex of some sort, right? It's very interesting, the naming here. The previous GPT series model, GPT 5.2, then 5.3 was Codex. There's no standalone 5.3 as far as I saw. And now they released a newer version that's called GPT 5.4 Think. But there's two versions of them, right, LJ?
Of 5.4?
Yeah, there's the Think variation that's like very strong.
Yeah, so they actually showed benchmarks for load thinking, for just no reasoning effort, so basically instant, as well as medium, high, and even extra high scores. So if you scroll down, and there's a OS World verified chart that actually shows the different thinking budgets.
Yeah, here?
Yeah, right there. There you go. Yep.
So what are we seeing here? Let's read through this. At number of tools, the more tools, so we're seeing a graph with the x-axis is the number of tool yields. So how many tools are getting called, and the accuracy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so the y-axis is the accuracy here, and then the different dots, the different blue dots, either blue or purple. I'm a bit colorblind. So those different bluish dots that's the no reasoning effort, the low, the medium, the high, and the extra high. And then you could see also no reasoning effort, low, medium, high, and extra high for 5.2. It kind of goes in this funny zigzag pattern because at some point it actually doesn't get consistently better. But that's impressive that 5.4 does actually seem to get consistently better on this benchmark, whereas the last generation didn't.
I would say, based on this graph, no effort is the lowest at 40%. Still better than pretty much all of the previous model at very, very high effort. I think this is the craziness of this graph. And then if we go higher, the difference between the thinking reasons is not that crazy, right? The 75%, maybe 77%, 75, 73, and 71 between the medium effort, the high effort, and the extra high effort. But the jump between how good this model is running your computer from the previous GPT 5.2 is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. 71% on medium effort versus 45% of medium effort. Yep.
Yeah, what's
This
really
is the
cool about that.
general. My question. This is the general model, right? This is not the codec model. This is the general.
Yeah, this is the new general model is beating the previous coding model.
Let's go, guys.
Yep. So a very interesting way for them to highlight kind of the improvements here. Yeah. What else can we talk about this model here? On Web Arena Verify, which tests the browser use, GPT 5.4 achieves a leading 67.3% success rate when using both DOM and screenshot-driven interaction, compared to GPT 5.2 at 65%. On Online Mind2Web, which also tests browser use, GPT 5.4 achieves 92% success rate using screenshot-based observation alone, improving on ChatGPT Atlas Agent Mode, which achieves a success rate of 70%. This model, the new one, achieves 92% success rate at using only screenshots versus 70% in Atlas, which Atlas we know is great. What? This is crazy. What else is here? I haven't.
So eventually you should see a Tau2 bench, Telecom, and that's a good agentic benchmark. And it shows actually, interestingly, they're highlighting the without reasoning scores here. Yeah, so they have Telecom and Airline. If I recall right, the Airline benchmark is relating to basically having to book a ticket for someone, having to book like a plane ticket and do that, which obviously requires kind of multiple steps back and forth with a given interface usually, or with a given database of flight times and flight prices and things like that.
And we're seeing that in T-Bench Telecom without reasoning, GPT 5.4 gets 64%, jumping over 57% from GPT 5.2. Interesting, they didn't include Codex 5.3 here. Improved web search, significantly improved web search. New state of the art at 89%. There's a lot of sort of like state of the art achievements here. So GPT 5.4 is better at agentic web search. On BrowseComp, a measurement of how well AI agents can persistently browse the web to find hard-to-locate information, GPT 5.4 leaps 70% average over 5.2, and the GPT 5.4 Pro, which is the second model, sets the new state of the art at 89%. And we have comments that it's already in the Codex app, Nisten. So if you want to run this at a test, let's definitely do a vibe check on this. I'll launch Codex as well and see if I got it.
Finally, they're showing some 5.4 Pro benchmarks on the screen here.
For BrowseComp, which is the state of the art. So we are getting two models. One is the regular one is the Pro model, looks like. And let's see if I've got it.
Oh, this is also a big thing we haven't mentioned yet. 1 million tokens of context.
Oh, wow. Okay, for the bigger model.
Oh, let's go.
I'm not sure about Pro, but it does say, if you just Control F for context, you'll see.
Yeah.
Or just Control F for 1 million, actually.
So hang on. In ChatGPT, 5.4 thinking is available starting today to ChatGPT Plus, Team, and Pro users, replacing 5.2 thinking. Will remain available for 3 months, the previous model. Those on enterprise and E2 plans enable early access to its available context window, remain unchanged from the previous ones. In Codex, in GPT 5.4 in Codex includes experimental support for the 1 million context window. Developers can try this by configuring model context window and model auto-compact token limit. Requests that exceed the standard 272 context window count against usage limits at 2x the normal rate. Okay, so essentially you can run your Codex. It's more fair than Opus 4.4. So basically you can run your codexes for much, much, much longer.
I just noticed they also have the Terminal Bench 2.0 score in their block there. If you go back to it, it's there. They only gave it for the GPT 5.4, not for the Pro, and it's 75.1%, which interestingly is lower than GPT 5.3 Codex, which got 77.3%. Unfortunately, they don't give any information how many runs they did and so on, but basically their score is about the same score I got with Opus 4.6. So in that benchmark, it's on par with this.
Yeah,
really, because Opus 4.6 as per Anthropic on blog post is 65.
Yeah, that is also interesting because I got a higher score with my benchmark. I did 5 runs and I got this score.
Starting to look like it's on par.
Do you guys notice that there's no Opus here at all mentioned? Nothing, no comparisons. Let's go to the technical card, because I think we have that as well, right? Because I think it's very important for us as well. Folks, I will just mention that Sam Altman just posted about this, and we are here live. Looks like a lot of people are joining us right now to talk about the new...
We want to try.
The new release from OpenAI, GPT 5.4, that jumps over the latest 5.2 significantly, but also is competing with 5.3 as well it's now available in the Codex app. LDJ, go ahead while I pull up the technical card that you also sent.
So the pricing, which I have here, is, so it's about the same for output price. It's $15 per million tokens compared to 5.2, which is $14 per million tokens. So really tiny difference there. For input price though, it's about 50% more expensive than 5.2. So 5.2 was, it's $1.75 per million tokens for input. And GPT 5.4 is $2.50 per million tokens input. So that's roughly 50% more.
And that's up to 272. If you are enabling the 1 million output, then you'll get the 1 million token window price.
Yeah. And then in terms of the input and output price for 5.4 Pro, it is also a very, very small difference for output pricing, but it's about 50% more cost for the input.
We need to check this against the other models, but GPT 5.4 Pro has $30 per million tokens on the input and $180 for a million tokens on the output. $180 per million tokens. Wolfram, before we run benchmarks on this, let me run this by procurement, okay? Exceeding the realm of what is realistic to do benchmarks on, because $180 per million tokens times a few of the runs can set us back.
There'll be 60, and so every tool call that feeds it all the context, that's going to start being like $60 per tool call if you end up towards 1 million tokens.
Yeah,
You have to set some limits, not just on time, but also on cost.
Yeah.
Sponsor this.
We should mention also the Codex is on Windows, so yeah, all of you on Windows can use this without like running the Codex CLI. Let's look at the system card and then let's find what's like important about this. So again, two models. I still haven't seen comparison to Opus. I still haven't seen the differences between the 5.4 thinking and 5.4 Pro. So I would love to see this as well.
If we can do a quick test, I pasted the prompt in
Yeah,
the chat here.
I sent the link to the system card.
Okay, the full system card. Okay, Nisten, let me pull this up, and then I will also test out the Mars thing. So we're gonna run Nisten's Mars thing, and we can see already that like Codex is not Codex. Within the Codex harness, folks, we need to relearn this, okay? So far, we've been, when we said Codex, we sometimes meant Codex 5.3, the previous GPT version. Now, this is GPT 5.4, the standard one. So Codex now in this thing refers to the app Codex. And GPT 5.4 within the Codex harness is running and doing one of these tasks. You can see a bunch of searches that it did for different NASA websites and the JPL, etc. And it's running Nisten's prompt to calculate mass driver rail would need to accelerate. For how long would need to accelerate to get people out of the Mars top Mount Olympus Mons at max 2G gravity.
Builds the megastructure on Mars and visualizes it. And I really like to find one-shot prompts that you can vibe check models with, because they actually tend to be pretty good comparisons between different models of capabilities. And we use the same one for like almost a year now. And so it's a pretty complex megastructure thing that has to build and visualize and have a maglev launcher that's built along the mountain on Mars. It's got to launch stuff into space. It's got to make it all pretty and look like a video game. So it has to get the math right, has to get the coding right, and has to get the visuals right. So it's a good one-shot test for agents.
LDJ, I think you're sending a few screenshots. You want to talk to them?
Yeah, these are just some of the most drastic changes in benchmarks that I saw while looking through the system card. MLE bench, machine learning engineering bench. So this is just literally the ability for AI models to be able to do AI research, machine learning, engineering, more specifically. And here we could see 5.2 thinking to GPT 5.2 Codex. That actually was little to no change, or maybe possibly even just a dip there. Then almost doubles in the score from 5.2 Codex to 5.4 thinking. Unfortunately, no 5.3 Codex there to compare against.
Yep.
And then the next,
I think most people are going to be interested in, because obviously Codex is great, but I think most people are going to be interested in figuring out how to compare this to Opus, and how to like think about whether or not them leaving OpenAI a day ago, they should come back now because of this model.
In many benchmarks, from what I recall, especially for the coding benchmarks, 5.3 Codex was near identical or higher in most of them compared to Opus 4.6.
Yeah.
So unfortunately for that specific benchmark that you just showed, we don't have a 5.3 Codex score for that. However, for the next image that I think I sent, I believe that one does have a 5.3 Codex score.
Let me open this up. Here, this is the monorepo bench. You want to talk to this one?
Yeah, sure. So these are pretty similar at first glance, but if we look at the specific scores, 5.2 thinking to 5.3 Codex, that's near identical, or actually maybe even like a 0.7% drop. So probably within margin of error. And then a little bit over 3% increase though for 5.4 thinking. So that does seem kind of significant when you look at the relative score changes over the generations.
Yep. I gotta wonder about the design scores as well. Like most models when they release, and I think it's very important here to say, folks, this is a new model from OpenAI. There is not only a coding model. It's not like a dedicated coding model, and it's now walking through the design of the system. So index HTML and style. So now it's like it's coding up Nisten's like very hard question. We can like review the changes as well. But most of these models are used for other things. And so this model is live now on, I think it's live on ChatGPT as well. It's definitely live in Codex. Let's see if it's live on ChatGPT for us. I still have 5.3 instant, and no, I only have 5.2 thinking here. I didn't get it on ChatGPT via the Pro account yet, but I'm assuming that they're rolling this out quick. But a very interesting thing that they released it on Codex already. And I gotta wonder if it's in Codex CLI. I'm assuming so as well. Let's take a look at Codex CLI. Let's get out of Cloud Code.
But you can use it if you specifically just name the model, like -M GPT
I have it here. Look,
4.5.
I opened Codex and it's right here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, GPT
Nice.
5.4. Let's go to models and then hit enter, and then 5.4 Codex. I didn't even have to update the app. It's just here. Latest frontier agentic coding model.
Oh, beautiful.
The funny thing is, if you guys look at the Codex CLI, the description for both the previous state-of-the-art 5.3 Codex and the new one, 5.4, is latest frontier agentic coding model. So they are considering this as a coding model as well. Now, my questions for this one is there a way for us to measure how autistic 5.3 was versus this new one? This is what I like to measure. 5.3 was very much a do exactly as you tell it type of model, and so I gotta wonder if like this one's gonna be a little bit better. It's kind of slow on Nisten's task. Like I would expect it to finish it by now.
I think the easiest way is just to let it do some testing or unit test for something that you can't just write, specific unit test to check a contract or something and just see if it gets what you're actually trying to measure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very easy to know if it's different.
You can try turning Opus 5.3 into Codex 5.3 into a therapy bot or something compassionate.
I'm imagining the 5.3, like what's going to happen if you ask 5.3 Codex about this?
Yes, 5.3. Compliment the girl.
Have any of you ever tried to have 5.3 or Codex basically generate documentation for the code? It reads so much different than if you have Opus write the documentation. Or when you had it talks like a specialist in a field, and it doesn't even care if you don't know what it's talking about.
Let's read some of the thought processes. I asked GPT 5.4 to do one thing that it can improve about the thursdai website while we have Nisten's kind of like thing running behind. Using the web design guidelines skill to judge the most impactful single improvement without changing the code. You can see some of the reasoning here. Let's read through the reasoning. This is 5.4 thinking. I need to fetch the latest guidelines. It seems I should be using a web tool to access this information. I'll aim for the raw GitHub data, making sure the follow-up instructions accurately. I don't remember seeing this in GPT 5.3 kind of reasoning thoughts. Like the self-affirmation thing is very, very interesting.
Starting to sound a bit like Opus. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, and right, it feels like a little bit more humane and like less straightforward, the autistic than 5.3. It says also I should probably take a closer look at the CSS at the index file. For some tasks, I might need to use tools like RG and SET to help me out. I think I should focus on producing one key improvement for the website, probably mentioning something related to file references. Okay. I like the thinking processes here, and I have the answer. I'm pulling exact line references. So let's see the actual answer. This is kind of awful. The one thing I'd improve is the site's core page accessibility. Add the proper main landmark with a skip to content link. Right now, the shared shell, what is this? I don't even know.
I kind of this. If you want to get high Google Lighthouse scores, you have to hit all the accessibility stuff. And
I guess, but this is okay. So I guess this is not necessarily what I meant when I said improve the website. I meant like for a front end, we can run the same thing with Opus just to compare between the two and say like what is the one thing, and then see how Opus approaches this.
It's still a bit autistic.
Yeah, that's why I want to say Claude. Yeah, let's go like this.
It's not a bad thing. But, I mean, it just changes your harnessing quite a bit.
Yeah, let's give the same one to Opus. All right, it's gonna go, and we're gonna compare between the codexes. One thing, it gave me an accessibility thing. I gotta wonder if we can ask Codex to actually view the website and then give a response. Meanwhile, let's take a look at Opus and then compare the two outputs for fixing the one thing from the website. Look at this. The guests from ticker. It's a plain text marquee of a company names with no logos, photos, or links. It's a missed opportunity for social proof. Showing actual guest headshots or a company logo would make it instantly more credible and visually compelling. Right now, it reads like filler text rather than trust signal. You guys, this is what I want from an intelligence. OpenAI, I love you, but when we refer to GPT Codex previously and now to the new one 5.4 as autistic, this is what we mean. Here's the comparison between the two things that I asked the question for. Cloud Code, Opus 4.6, when I asked it to improve one thing about the website, it launched the website in Chrome, I think. Yeah, it launched the website. It looked at the website and it said, hey, the guest is the plain text of a company name with no logos. This guy, okay, this guy, the scrolly, this guy, and it said it's showing guests or company logos, even small ones, would make it instantly more credible and visually compelling. Right now, it reads like filler text rather than just trust signal. So basically, it says, "Hey, Alex, these should be logos." Codex said, the one thing I'd improve is the site core page accessibility. Add the proper main landmark with skip to content link. This makes sense to no one. And I know
makes sense to me, but
no, but like there's no main. It's not a blog. It's a podcast website. It shouldn't. Yeah. Okay. I will say though, GPT 5.4 did not launch the website. It didn't see the website, so it is judging based off HTML. But it's also something that I would say, like, hey, why wouldn't you just like use your tools to launch the website? This is definitely a thing that would like to see.
I don't know. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, LDJ, you sent something. Folks, we're in the vibe testing of GPT 5.4, 5.4, not Codex, not 5.2 Codex, versus Opus 4.6. So if you have any examples you want to comment, feel free to give us. LDJ, go ahead.
Yeah, so the image that Alex is about to bring up, this is a comparison of Opus 4.6 to Gemini to GPT 5.4. And this is just in some popular benchmarks that they have in common. These are mostly agentic benchmarks, but there's a couple of coding ones in there as well.
Oh, nice. Is this from OpenAI?
Somebody in a group chat that I'm just posted this, but I just fact checked with the system card to make sure these are not like hallucinated figures. And all four of the scores I checked are all correct. So
yeah, okay. So let's take a look. GPT 5.4 thinking, not the Pro one. So the two models released thinking and Pro. The GPT 5.4 thinking, which let's just call it 5.4, and that's it.
5.4, yeah.
Yeah, GPT 5.4, 75% on OS World Verified versus Claude 72. It looks like it's beating on all these benchmarks. It looks like it's beating. By
the way.
Oh, my bad. Thank you. Yeah, there we go. Okay, is this better?
Yes.
Okay, so for comparison, GPT 5.4, we found some benchmark comparisons to Anthropic's 4.6 and Google's 3.1. LDJ, you want to read through some of these? Feel free.
It's world verified. It's a bit higher than 5.3 Codex. It's even more above Opus 4.6. No score for 3.1 Pro, unfortunately. Let's see what is one they have all in common. Browse comp. Okay, so agentic browsing. Here we see 82.7% for GPT 5.4 thinking. That looks like actually is behind both Opus 4.6 and 3.1 Pro when comparing to competitors. Yeah. However, if we look at 5.4 Pro, it ends up having the actual overall state of the art at 89.3%. Then
and
we have
5.4 Pro is, if we go based on the previous Pro models, it's kind of like a multiple like span out reasoning things that they choose the best ones across like multiple runs, and this is why they're so expensive. They're basically like spinning up 4 and running like the best out of them, or multi-agent.
Yeah. And actually, it's good that you just brought up here. So there's things like DeepThink from DeepMind that is basically the Gemini equivalent of that, which unfortunately we don't have to compare here. So it's possible that might even beat 5.4 Pro in something like BrowseComp, for example. But we just don't have that data to compare, unfortunately. But we could see here, what are some other ones they all have in common? Frontier Math. Okay, so here, which is the second one from the bottom, 5.4 Thinking. From tiers 1 to 3, it scores 47.6%. And that is higher than both 3.1 Pro and Opus 4.6 significantly.
Higher.
Then tier 4 Frontier Math, GPT 5.4 Thinking scores 27.1%. which is significantly higher than Opus 4.6's 22.9% and Gemini 3.1 Pro's 16.7%.
It's really good at math because of
Yep,
it. This is
I
why.
guess so.
Yes.
And then
I just want to add, Jordan, shout out to Jordan from Everyday AI. He said, this is a super vague prompt. With that, you get what you pay for, so not really a valid comparison. And I agree. This is a vague prompt. This is a prompt of me not knowing that the model statistic and how exactly I should talk about this. And Opus got exactly what I wanted. Exactly, without knowing anything, without like Opus did the thing that I wanted to do as a human. And the prompt engineering can get you so far with the GPT models. If you are good at prompt engineering, and there's a difference between the Cloud MD and AgentMD, this is like all goes into this thing. This is the difference between harnesses as well. Prompt engineering and knowing exactly what you want to build can get you significantly farther with the GPT models. And it looks like the thing that I wanted to test is whether or not it's close to Opus and understanding me as a human. And from these like few prompts, it's not. But like we should keep testing because like the numbers show a different story. Absolutely. Is it done, Nisten? LDJ, is there anything else we want to cover here, or you
I
want to
think
finish?
the 5.4 Pro score for Frontier Math Tier 4, which is the 38% one, it was
Yeah.
the Tier 4 level. It's almost double both Opus 4.6 and Gemini 3.1 Pro, which again isn't a fully fair comparison because we don't have DeepThink to compare against here.
That's true.
But it's really a big difference here.
I think the DeepThink did launch with some frontier math things.
I'll look for that while you guys move on to the next thing.
So we have comments from folks that saying, I want a model that can handle a vague prompt like that. Yeah, that's kind of where I am as well. Like I think that this is what I expect from the GPT stuff, the general intelligence, not the, hey, I know exactly how to ask you for stuff intelligence. Nisten, let's look at our Mars thing for now.
Okay, this is starting to look kind of good.
We have orbit run and we have the escape run.
Oh, camera director. There's a camera director button on the right.
Yeah, like this.
Okay. I think you can click it multiple times, actually.
Oh, it started at T-2 seconds. So supposedly we're going to travel with this.
Oh, it can change camera views?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Camera
Okay.
system, and there's the camera director and the camera chase. This looks
Okay,
significantly more advanced than the previous one, right?
Yeah, this is a lot better than what Codex did.
Yeah.
I think this is even
wow.
better.
Look at this. Look, are you seeing all this? Are you seeing the pulses?
Yeah, you can zoom out a bit so we can see it more.
Yeah, crazy.
Amazing.
It feels like just 6 months ago that like we were trying to do this, and yeah, it would kind of do it with the frontier models, but like it wouldn't have all these extra bells and whistles and these nice graphics and this camera change option and this whole UI.
This is very good.
This is so good. There's stars in the background. There's a pulsing light on this thing. It gives you the flight log, and all of the calculations are supposedly like very, very high and correct. And this is the escape run.
3.54, 246, 385.9 kilometer track length. Yep, it got them right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I might have to actually use this now.
The math is correct.
This is the best one.
This is the best one that we've seen.
I'm not a fan of OpenAI, but this is the best one so far.
Yeah.
I'm actually very impressed. Holy shit.
Yeah, this is a very impressive model. This looks like a top tier model. GDP val. We have GDP val here. We don't have this for Google. We have this for Anthropic. GDP val is knowledge word tasks, win or tie. So basically, folks, if you're looking at a change in how the world works right now because of code, GDP val is that for like everything else, like knowledge work for everything else. And Jordan is right, like a very important benchmark. It's very interesting that the thinking version of GPT takes a higher score than the pro version that supposedly fan out and has more. 83% for GDP val, jump of 13 points over GDP 5.2 and 5.3 Codex. So the jump here is quite crazy. The jump from Anthropic Opus 4.6 is also quite a big one, although not as big. It's definitely there. This model 5.4 and thinking is both in the Codex interface, which is now on the Windows, and in Codex CLI. It has 1 million context window. Any other things that we should read? Let's look at the. I really want to like dig into the technical stuff that we haven't in the technical card. Let me pull this up.
There is at least one more thing. I noticed in their Twitter posts for 5.4, they mentioned the fact that, so I haven't used the native ChatGPT interface in a little bit. I've been mostly using Codex, so I don't know if this has been there for a while, but they mentioned the ability to interrupt in ChatGPT now. So like while it's thinking, you could send a message and the message will actually go through and help influence the rest of its thinking process.
Oh, the steering. Yeah, the steering, that I still don't have this on. I have 5.3 instant, but I don't have 5.4 on my ChatGPT, so we're going to wait.
I just sent this video here, by the way.
Yeah. So let's take a look. The steering is one of the major things. I think all the labs are going to catch up. The steering is one of the major things that work. Well, let's take a look at the video. So we're seeing a video that says, a baby Japanese macaque has stolen my heart. Where can I volunteer in NYC to be closer to animals? And ChatGPT is kind of thinking. And meanwhile, the person kind of writes, I live in Cobble Hill, by the way. So while the model was thinking, the person kind of added comments. And then the thinking process said, perfect, I'm narrowing this to like this friendly option. So not all of Manhattan. And I will say, as far as kind of UI affordances go, it's not really an affordance, but as far as the abilities of the model to actually understand, this happens to me all the time in OpenClaw, for example. I would send something like, oh shit, I forgot to mention this one thing. I would stop the whole process and I would like need to send this back again. This is definitely something that we like from the model. The steering of the model is something that like we always do. So now it's in the ChatGPT interface. This is new, right? I haven't seen this yet, but this is definitely new. And it said that rolling out gradually rolling out. Wolfram, maybe you want to comment on this, but for Terminal Bench, the previous artist, GPT-3 is still the best one. 5.3 is the best one.
Yeah, it's the agentic stuff, I think, that is a thing here. I commented on this before. This is a discrepancy here, that it has regressed in some benchmarks. Maybe some additional training.
I think for a generalist model to be on par with the coding model is a big deal, because even after all of that fine-tuning is just code and making it bad at everything else, like people saw in OpenClaw, the fact that it still gets the coding done, I think that, yeah, that makes it a lot more useful. Like there's some discrepancy there where the coding model, that only shows how good it is at the benchmarks. But for actual real world use, you're going to have opinions in the app, you're going to have descriptions, you're going to have more artistic stuff that it needs to be good at, even when acting agentically. So to me, that's like overall a way better model. Like, I don't think the benchmark shows everything there.
Yeah. LDJ, go ahead.
Yeah, so on that note too of what Nisten just said, something important here is the fact that it seems much more efficient at using tools and needing less tool calls essentially to do the same amount of things, or at least less sequential or serialized set of tool calls. So that should also, at least in some agentic cases where it requires a lot of tool calls, make the overall task complete faster. So even though it might be not quite as good as Codex, or a little bit worse in certain more agentic coding aspects, it might just get the job done very similarly, but much faster.
Yeah. I think this has been the feedback on GPT 5.3 as well, that like if you know how to prompt it correctly, you can spin a task agents and it will run and eventually will do whatever you want after a while. We've been on the air with a little over 3,000 people here, been on the air for quite a while. Any other things? So we probably should summarize this at this point. Yeah, go ahead, Wolfram.
One thing, it's cheaper than Sonnet.
It's cheaper than Sonnet, while outperforms Opus on multiple tasks. Also 1 million context window, which Sonnet also has an experimental, right? So we only saw 1 million context window in OpenAI models at like 4.1 models before, or like for enterprise, right? So now we have a very long context window model, even though the calls for exceeding the experimental 1 million context window are increasingly expensive. But folks, let's do a summary super quick. GPT 5.4 just dropped with 1 million context window, state of the art. GPT 5.4 thinking just dropped with 1 million context window support. It's now live at the Codex app and is going live on the ChatGPT. It has state of the art reasoning across multiple benchmarks. It looks like we've tested it out on coding. It's good on coding. It's still very much needs instructions, direct instructions. We are all excited to go play with this, obviously. Parting thoughts, folks. Nisten, what is your summary after seeing this perform on the Mars benchmark thing that we run here often.
I might start using it. I might just use it through AMP too. But yeah, I think I might start finally. I haven't had a ChatGPT subscription in like 2 years.
Oh, okay.
So this is kind of convincing me to do it.
Yeah.
Take that as you will.
Folks are saying this is a high praise for this one. Alrighty, folks. I think with this, it's time to conclude Thursday for today. We didn't get to all the news, but we covered like the most important ones. Definitely an exciting day when OpenAI releases a new model. Wolfram, you want to finish up and then?
Just wanted to say I've started a Wolfbench run on this model. It's not the expensive Pro model, so this is cheaper than Sonnet. I will do this, and this will be the next one I put up.
As well as we saw, the reported terminal bench is lower than the Opus one, so we'll see how maybe it's better on the baseline and lower on the top score as well. Folks, if you missed any part of the show is called Thursday. You can find anything on our new website called thursdai.news. Thursdai.news is the website. Please feel free to visit us and the episode links there. Every piece of thing that we talked here, including the screenshots and evaluations, will be posted as a newsletter after this. We are here every week to talk about everything major that happens in AI, including breaking news like right now. We've been doing this for 3 years. So next week, we're going to celebrate exactly 3 years of Thursday News. Just for comparison, 3 years ago, GPT 4 was launched. This is 5.4, and it's not really the same world anymore. So everybody is changing how they treat these AIs, and many people are going through an AI psychosis. We're going to be here to monitor the news for you. And so we appreciate you tuning in today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And then everything that we haven't covered still will be also in the newsletter. Feel free to follow us on everywhere where you listen to podcasts or newsletter. Thank you so much, folks. With this, we're going to tune out, and then we'll see you here next week, hopefully with more news. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.